Well, hello everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Certified Forgotten. We are still your podcast that talks about films with 10 or fewer reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, except for when we don't. Sometimes we talk about films with hundreds of reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. This is an uncertified episode. That means that it is not an hour length episode with a wonderful guest. It's just me and Matt Donato, and we're riffing about a new release. And I thought about asking him to do Return to Silent Hill, but I thought that would be me. And so now we're doing The Bone Temple instead. So yeah, that's everything in a nutshell. What do you think, Donato?
I mean, if you wanted me to rant about Return to Silent Hill for 30 minutes, that would not have been hard because what a piece of shit. But no, let's talk about something good. Actually, like it's hilarious. The only positive review I've written this year is The Bone Temple. Everything else has been astronomically bad. Killer Whale, fucking Return to Silent Hill. I am struggling to stay above water with good movies.
Well, first of all, sounds a bit like a skill issue. But second of all, I am going to be watching Return to Silent Hill this evening. Maybe I'll write a review for Certified Forgotten. If you get up this morning and you're listening to this podcast and you see that on the website, you're welcome and or I'm sorry. I'll figure it out in about 3 hours. But yes, let's talk about a movie that we know without a shadow of the doubt is excellent. And that is 28 years later, The Bone Temple, written by Alex Garland, directed by Nia DaCosta. Quick plot synopsis for those who haven't had a chance to see it in theaters yet. When we left our intrepid hero Spike, he was being rescued from a wave of the infected by the Jimmies, an adolescent group of killers led by the charismatic and heartless Jimmy. Now, Spike is reluctantly initiated into their group, roaming the countryside and causing pain among the survivors. Meanwhile, Dr. Kelson, fresh off the heels of boiling Spike's mom, now Jimmy, Spike Jimmy, Spike's mom, has made a new friend, Samson, the infected alpha who has begun to show the smallest signs of conscious thought. Soon, Jimmy, Spike, and Kelson will find their roads, literal and metaphorical, converging in the Temple of Bone. Matt Donato, you said in Slack a few days ago, before the movie released, that this might be your favorite question mark in the franchise, even including the first one. You've had some time to think about it. How do you feel about that?
I mean, listen, I like the first movie quite a good deal. That is not a commentary on anything else being bad. I actually kind of think 28 weeks is not terrible. 28
Okay.
years, not terrible. Listen,
All
again,
right. All right.
it's
All right.
not fucking high art, but for a 28 follow up, I thought weeks is okay. Years, I'm in the same boat of I didn't love it, I didn't hate it, I was kind of in the middle on it. So yeah, I mean, like Bone Temple just hit me out of nowhere because what it's dealing with and how it's dealing with the infection outbreak, whatever you call it, all these years later, and trying to keep the doomsday like kind of evolution going, but also not being afraid to explore some really interesting topics. Like if we're looking at just straight cutthroat quote unquote zombie movies, I know it's not a zombie movie, but it operates in the same way at times. I like 28 days later, fucking breakneck and it's breathless and just like it as fierce and attacks you. Bone Temple is not really the same at all. It feels so distant from the first movie, but I'm loving what it's doing with the Jimmies. I'm loving what it's doing with the Bone Temple. And I'm loving what it's doing with Samson specifically because once again, it continues to evolve in its storytelling in a way that I didn't know if I needed. Are we doing spoilers? What are we doing?
Yeah. If you haven't seen the movie, check out now. Donato spoilers go.
Yeah. We're getting to the point where Samson can be cured. And that is such an interesting, I guess, turn to take in these films because, well, if there is a cure and we can save people, like that just erases so much of the I'm gonna say boringness of like a straightforward zombie movie or viral outbreak movie, where that movie is just about people trying to survive and the attackers are dead, undead, whatever you want to call them. With Samson, like being able to become his human self again, the stakes are now like tremendous because we know that can be done over and over again, and that just like it blows the story into such unprecedented waters. So I think this movie is really daring. I think this movie is super thoughtful. I think it's dark in the right moments, but also hopeful at the same time. And, honestly, if I'm talking about it from after seeing 28 years later, it takes all the best things about 28 years later and it just runs with those because I think we talk about 28 years? I forget, whatever.
We did not.
Um,
No.
we did not. Okay. My really quick take on that is there's some really beautiful cinematography and there's some really good stuff going on in parts, but it is just so overloaded as an origin story. It's just throwing stuff at you as a trilogy starter. And the stuff that we don't get continued in the Bone Temple, I think is for the better. And the stuff that they do really hone in on in the Bone Temple, I think was the best choice they ever made. So for all that, sorry I've been blathering, but no, I think Bone Temple could be my favorite of the bunch. And I'm gonna say that definitively now.
You don't sound incredibly confident when you're saying that. There was a lot of waffling, I feel like, in your voice. Are you sure with your whole throat for all time and posterity is 28? Oh, we did talk about 28 years later. I don't remember what we talked about. For all posterity, though, 28 years later, The Bone Temple is your favorite movie in the franchise? Yes, no.
Right now.
Yes. Okay.
It's
All
the
right.
best thing I do because yeah, they're both good for completely different reasons. And when I want to watch one, it's because I'm in that mood. And when I want to watch the other, it's because I'm in that mood. I think that's the best way I can say it.
Okay. I can't go quite as far, which is not a knock on the Bone Temple. It's just a matter of I have both personal. I'm sure I talked about this on our previous episode. I have both personal and filmic reasons for liking the first one. The personal stuff is that I was working at a movie theater during my gap year when the movie was released, and I spent at the end of every screening of that movie in the back of the theater for the in the house heartbeat section. So I have like all of this emotional history built up with the movie. I love it. The unavailability of it for the last 20 years added an extra level of connection to it, I think. So I do. I love that film. I I think when I was talking to people about the Bone Temple, I described it as and I should say Amber T, a writer for Fangoria, posted a few days ago, Film Critic Challenge, talk about the Bone Temple without shitting on 28 years later. Because a lot of people like this movie and did not like its predecessor 28 years later, which I think is a good way of couching this and saying that I'm not here to talk about what I didn't like about 28 years later. I only want to compare and contrast in terms of the things that it does differently. And I think what 28 years does, and the way I've described it to folks, is it takes a story that is a mile wide and an inch deep. It is trying to reestablish a world, introduce pockets and communities of folks, introduce stuff that had happened in the last 28 years. It is trying to cover a lot of narrative ground in a short period of time with a reasonably big cast of characters. And I don't think it does. I don't think it does anything more than that. I think it kind of skims along the surface of the world a little bit, partially because of the knowledge and understanding that this is the beginning of a series of stories and not the totality of a single story. And I think The Bone Temple is its polar opposite in that it is a film that is an inch wide and a mile deep. It only follows a handful of characters. It doesn't really explore. There is no mention of Spike's previous camp. There's no Aaron Taylor Johnson. There is no world outside of the Jimmies and the Bone Temple and the Memento Mori. It is just these characters processing the time span of a week or two that elapses since the first film. That's always going to be more my jam. Like I'm always going to like to spend time with characters in a bit more depth. But I also think that you mentioned the cure as a spoiler bit here. I think part of what's impressive about the Bone Temple is that it is a huge moment for the franchise, but it doesn't feel like capital P plot. It doesn't feel like it is a moment in a movie that says, aha, now we have a cure and imagine what this could do for the rest of the movie. It's just a lonely guy who figures out a way to fix the friend that he's made. And whether that continues beyond Samson or whether Samson is this miraculous aberration in the history of the infected, the movie doesn't really have anything to say about that other than that. It's just Dr. Kelson was able to do this one thing for Samson, and it is a buddy relationship. It is a story of loneliness and memory between these two characters. And so even though could be, and other movies might have been like, my God, we need to rush the cure to whatever compound and see if we can survive, or Dr. Kelson needs to say, we need to Samson, you need to be it's not about that. It's about these two characters and the conclusion of their arc together. And so I do love, if I didn't love 28 years or 28 days later, I would have no problem anointing this, but I love this movie quite a bit. I would say for me, this is a Furiosa Mad Max saga level storytelling. Like it is a deconstruction of its immediate predecessor. It is a much richer and character driven adaptation, and it does some stuff that I truly truly loved about this film. I think I gave it like a 4.5 on Letterboxd. I'm pretty enamored with everything that Garland and DaCosta are able to do with the story.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned DaCosta because it is very much an Alex Garland script. I see that DNA through everything. But where, Danny Boyle and him have been working together for how long? And I feel like they have this beautiful kind of cadence that they can work together in.
Hmm.
I think Nia DaCosta coming in and bringing her, I think, energy, her, once again, thoughtfulness, and just well, number one, I don't think she's ever made a bad movie, and I just think she's getting better and better as a filmmaker. And there is so much beauty in this film, whether that is cinematography, that like there are these amazing shots of the Bone Temple. There's so much good uses of like lighting and blocking, but the way that she is fearless in a like directorial way, and certain decisions like I don't know who chose those needle drops, but the
Hmm.
soundtrack here is absolutely fantastic, and it only adds to the character of this movie because you mentioned, well, I guess Samson and Kelson, like their friendship, let's call it, and the way that Kelson can subdue the wild beast, and they just sit there and just like look at the sky together, and they're just two dudes tripping out, dancing together to fucking Devo and shit, and like I never would have expected that in 100 years
Yeah.
from a 28 years, months, however the duration of time is. And again, that's Garland's screenplay, so like obviously credit to Garland, but I just think that the way that DaCosta works with these really big swings, she's keeping everything in a way that like those scenes where it is Kelson and Samson having their little bro time together, I don't think other directors would be able to keep that as grounded and meaningful. Where I think DaCosta never loses a through line of the entire movie. If we're with the Jimmies, it's gross and violent, and these are bastards, and she keeps that kind of like gangland culture going. But we also get the Samson and Kelson stuff, and it is a bro comedy at times.
Yeah.
And then we just have other elements too that like the ferocity is still there. Like there's still heads getting ripped out of, sorry, heads getting torn off and the spines coming with them, or the oh man, the Iron
Yeah.
Maiden needle drop. Like anyone who can take the most obvious needle drop and turn it into what will probably be one of my favorite scenes of the year. I think that alone right there, and Ray Fiennes, that's a testament to the actor as well. I was almost going to say I don't think he's ever been better, but that's crazy. It's Ray Fiennes. He's been tremendous in so many things. But I will say, unexpectedly, The Bone Temple is one of his best works.
He's never been more fun in a movie than he is in this one. He's done a lot of serious work. This is him letting his hair down, or the hair that he doesn't have down, and really enjoying in a way that only a actor of like, you see those things when like Ian McKellen having fun with Gandalf, right? Where like he gets to play something that is just cheese that he really really gets to dig into and have fun with. I think that Dr. Kelson is the Ian McKellen Magneto, Ian McKellen Gandalf kind of thing, where he really gets to play. He gets to play, and he's so good that the baseline for the character is high, but he gets to have a really good time in all of the beats and all the storytelling things, and he gets to hang dong, which good for him too. Good for him. I
A
will
lot of
say
dong,
that
a lot of dong in this movie. Good
a
for
lot of
everybody.
dong in this movie.
Good for everybody.
Don't know how much of it's prosthetic. I know that not all of it. Not all of it is real. Chi Louis Perry is on record as saying that he's not hanging real dong, but it still looks good on the screen. I want to give a quick shout out too, because as much as and you went through the list of folks and what they're doing, I think that this movie belongs more than anyone else. I think it belongs to Aaron Kellyman, because what Aaron Kellyman is doing as the Jimmy that doesn't want this anymore, right? As the Jimmy that sort of takes Spike underneath her wing and is in this treacherous place where she has lost faith in Jimmy, Jack O'Connell Jimmy, has lost faith in Jimmy, but is so far down an ideological road that she needs there to be truth in what he says. That is a really great character. And I think it also ties back a little bit to, I'm obviously not English and I can't speak to the specificity, although I've seen a lot of really great writers talk about why 28 years later is such a uniquely British horror film. I do think that part of the thing about having an American filmmaker take on the sequel is I think there's probably less, and I'm guessing here. I think there's probably less cultural specificity in terms of like the Englishness of it all, and a little bit more of the universal, like the idea of a demagogue, of a cult of personality, of folks that are willing to go down a road they know is wrong because the alternative is loneliness and sadness and worse. That feels like universally yes, but also sort of like uniquely American Christian kind of vibes. And I think that what we see Erin Kellyman doing with that character, how she creates a Jimmy that is is a lost soul because she doesn't believe in what she's doing, but she doesn't believe that there's a better thing to do than what she's doing. That is there is richness in that basically carries the entire Jimmy arc and gives it alongside what we learn about Jack O'Connell's Jimmy and sort of his own desperation and sadness, not as forgiveness, but as flavor. There's a lot going on with the Jimmys, and I think that's part of it too. Is we're one of the big ideas from the original 28 Days Later, which Chris Eccleston has in his little speech, is like, "Who did you kill? You wouldn't be here today unless you killed someone. So who did you kill?" That is the beating heart of the Jimmies. Who did you kill? You wouldn't be here today unless you killed someone. Literally, made literal in the initiation process. And so the way that those tie together, those two movies, without basically patting the audience on the head and being like, "Murder, huh?" I love it. I love what Alex Garland has done. I love what Nia DaCosta has done.
Yeah, and I mean, let's heap a little praise on Jack O'Connell too,
Mhm.
because chasing sinners with 28 years later, the Bone Temple. The dude knows how to play bastard. The dude knows how to
Mhm.
play evil. He knows how to play charismatic manipulator. He is that certain kind of evil that can, command a cult, weasel his way in, make you laugh, and then just turn on a dime and
Yeah.
he's flaying you or whatever. And like that scene where the Jimmies do perform their charities or what are they, right?
Yes.
The charities.
Acts of
They
charity.
call
Yeah.
their violent acts. I like even the way they talk about it and the way they believe what's going on, and you know how Jimmy believes he's the son of the devil and all this stuff. The more that comes out, I just think Jack O'Connell is just fucking bathing in this character. He's doing
Yes.
so well. Obviously, like you said, it's been written about a lot. This is an incredibly British film, but Jack O'Connell is basically playing a take on Jimmy Savile. And if you don't know who that is, please go look it up. He is he is a bastard. He is a bad person. He is everything that is being mocked in a way in the
Mhm.
Bone Temple in the right ways. So I also love that the Jimmys have different names. Jimmy Inc. is Kellyman's character, and everyone has their own little like twitches and whatnot to be a Jimmy. Someone's just Jimmy. That's of course just why not. But it just goes one step further to be I don't know. There's something really characterized about the Jimmies, despite them just being that blonde-haired tracksuit mafia kind of thing. But again, it's DaCosta kind of feeling out every part of this movie. And like here's the thing, I also disagree a little bit with with not commenting on 28 years and the Bone Temple at the same time, because like it's hard for me not to compare them for the very
Yeah.
reason that I think the Bone Temple is a better version of what was trying to be done in 28 years.
Yeah.
And the unfortunate comparison is their continuations, their direct sequels. And at this point, I think DaCosta is a little better at trying to weave storylines together and tell something complete. And like that's where I stand on it. Like I it's for me, like I can't look away from 28 years when I'm looking at the Bone Temple going, holy fuck, like all the problems I had with the last movie, I don't have anymore.
I
So
agree
like
with
I
that.
think that's where I differ a little bit because I don't know, I get it. Like some people loved 28 years, but like I don't know that's not how we as critics should talk. Like don't slander one movie and blah 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 blah. Like no, like that's part of the analysis.
Well, I do agree that every movie, you should approach every film as much as possible in a vacuum. I also believe that we cannot actually do that in any meaningful way. And anybody that says, "Oh, I go into movies cold," you don't. Like you just don't. You like actors, you like a director, like you feel warm or you feel cold towards something. We just can't do that. I what I am interested to do at some point this year is perhaps watch the two of these back to back and see if the duality of that experience changes how I feel about 28 years later for the better, or if I find myself not less impressed by 28 years later, The Bone Temple, but if I see more of what I like about the sequel in its predecessor. If both films become more than the sum of their parts, and if I like the connection of the franchise a bit. I do want to talk. You mentioned the Jack O'Connellness of it. I think to borrow the internet meme, I think that he has spent the last 12 months making movies about hurt people who hurt people. Right? What is that old adage? Hurt people hurt people. That is what Jack O'Connell is doing. He's having an absolutely great time doing it, and that's a tremendous amount of fun to watch. And I to double all the way back to the needle drop thing too. I think of another bit of connective tissue. I love the soundtrack to 28 Days Later. The soundtrack to 28 Days Later and all the different shopping, the track by a band whose name I'm never going to remember. And a half dozen other pop songs from the era that it kind of weave in and out of the soundtrack. I think that's a lot of fun. And I think there are these musical set pieces throughout where music and accompaniment, like House in a Heartbeat, musical set piece, shopping, a musical set piece. Danny Boyle's has a really great eye for combining music and visuals and creating these like self-contained little vignettes on screen. I do see a lot of that in 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple as well. And I gotta say, this is the second time I've been in a movie theater in the last few years where a movie has dropped "Everything in Its Right Place" by Radiohead on me. The other one being the terrible whatchamacallit movie that I didn't actually like. Do you remember the name of it? The one with Washington. It was the sci-fi where he's like transporting the young AI. I
Gareth
don't remember.
Evans? It's the
Sorry,
Gareth Evans
it's
movie, right?
Gareth Evans. Yeah, yeah. What was the name of that movie?
Yeah, I completely forgot the name of that movie. He
Okay,
played
well there you
Fantastic
go.
Mess and then just vanished from memory.
Gone forever, but had a
The
really
creator,
good.
it's something generic like the
It's like the
creator.
creator. We'll say
Yeah.
the creator. Needle drop in that. Everything in its right place by Radiohead. It is my favorite Radiohead song, so I'm never mad when I hear it show up in a movie. But I do wonder. Not. I think there's an element of 28 Years Later and 28 Days Later, which was experimental in its use of digital. The first film shot entirely on digital. Danny Boyle's sequel famously used iPhones to create kind of like a wall of photography type thing that it could use to do some of the action sequences. There aren't any of those handheld new cinema type of ideas happening in the Bone Temple. It's just a much more traditionally shot film, and I think for the better. I think, and I'm probably exaggerating here, but I do feel like 28 years later, The Bone Temple is the first of the franchise to sort of step outside its fascination or connection to digital filmmaking and handheld filmmaking and like digital processes. It's just a gorgeous looking movie. It doesn't telegraph the fact that it is shot in a certain way. And again, I could be wrong. I could go look at like American Cinematographer and they could talk about all the innovative new like small techniques they did. But it is cinematic in a way that I think that the other movies aren't, and that also stands out to me a little bit.
Yeah, I'm very much happy they did not replicate some of the iPhone technology. It didn't work for me. It's just what it
Mhm.
is. I did not like those crazy edit cuts of the iPhone. So God bless innovation. God bless
Sure.
any kind of experimentation. But that's the risk of experimentation. It's not going to work for everyone. And so that's just, again, one more thing where I'm like, this, I go back to just the landscapes of this movie and how DaCosta is able to navigate either whether they're sprawling mountain ranges or pulling in so close on Ray Fiennes in this crazy makeup,
Hmm.
and the flames are swirling everywhere. Like it's it's the best. It's one of the best music videos I've ever seen. Like I don't know how else to do that.
Yeah.
Like Ray Fiennes is just giving himself to every note of the number of the beast and just doing this like he's writhing and dancing, and I I am propelled by the energy in that scene maybe a little more than anything else, and it's one of the last things you see. So it's a perfect usage of go out on a high note, because a lot of that
Mm.
movie I'm like, this is good. I never didn't like it. I was always like, this is good. There's a lot of good stuff going on here, but to end there, correct, absolutely fucking correct.
But it didn't end there, Donato.
Oh, but
It
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 didn't.
burns. True spoilers happening right now. It burns a shit ton of goodwill in a very short period of time by forcing itself to end on connective tissue to the rest of the franchise. With now, don't get me wrong, super happy to see Killian Murphy back. Like, great that they have plans for that character in that universe. Um, be interesting to see how they expand upon that a little bit. I'm never going to be mad to see Killian Murphy in anything. He could show up with a UPS package in my front door. I'd be delighted to see him. But I'm so pissed. Like I found myself thinking about Ocean's 11 when everybody gathers around the fountain and walks away one by one, and then you're like, perfect ending, and then it like continues for another 10 minutes. It's that level of what the fuck did you do? End at the Bone Temple. Be done. You have it's perfect. It's perfect. There's like the cut up to the it's perfect. And then they do the well, here's the sequel chaser. Oh man, like I would there's a chance this might have been a 5-star movie for me if they had I like they didn't even need to get rid of it. If they just move that sequence into the credits so that I have the closure of the film and then it feels like the fucking MCU tag that it is. Like that is my biggest complaint about the movie is that felt like such a like listening to a beautiful clarinet concert, and then at the very end, the clarinet just goes, "Bah!" And then like you're ending on that. I was like, man, you fucked it up a little bit at the end, and it's not anybody's fault. They had to do it. This is the thing that's going to get the third movie made, hopefully. But I hated that. I really hated that.
Uh, Counterpoint: we might not get a third movie.
Truth.
The box office is not great. It's not bad. What did it do? 15 million.
I
But
don't
like,
know.
I don't know. They shot 28 years and Bone Temple back to back. So like those movies were done at the same time. So we knew both were coming out. There is no guarantee that 3 comes out. There is no greenlit on 3, despite there being obviously a story to tell and obviously filmmakers and actors who want to continue it.
Yeah.
That's the frustrating part for me. One of my biggest complaints about 28 years was we get to the end and it's like, oh, cool. Even more characters are being introduced and we don't know anything about them because the movie's ending on them, and great. It's just going to be the next movie with them. Like, save them for the next movie, blah, blah, blah. Here it's doubly so because, all right, we're playing the nostalgia game. We're going back to the well, but we don't even know if this is going to turn into anything. So, like, imagine if that's just the ending of this trilogy that maybe never happens. I'm not saying it's dead in the water, but I am saying I don't know if they did enough to get the third one made.
I at the end of the day, every movie needs to be like work on its own merits, right? And I think, do you need to watch 28 Years Later in order to appreciate the Bone Temple? Theoretically, yes. Practically, no. Like, yes, it's good for you to know everything that Spike's been through and why he's such a sad little fuck and why he deserves to be. Like, no knock there. But not really. Not you open it up with a kid being initiated in a weird group. It's not like watching the last 5 minutes of 28 Years Later is going to add any additional insight and appreciation for the Jimmies. I mean, it will help you appreciate Jimmy a little bit, but I mean, there's not too much there to dig into. But imagine you sat down and watched The Bone Temple and you hadn't seen any other movies in the franchise. What the fuck is that last scene going to do for you? Like, where are you? Like, what are you going to be feeling? You're like the guy from Oppenheimer is in this movie for 4 minutes. What's the deal with that? Like it doesn't. This movie works as a self-contained entity until it doesn't at the very end. And again, whatever. It's the way that it works anymore. Everybody makes movies like they're the final episode of a season. I get it. I fucking get it. But it was just so perfect. It was so perfectly self-contained and it had such a wonderful note to end on. And then they did the other stuff. And that's fine. It's fine. I can live with it. It just makes me mad a little bit. A little bit mad. A little bit mad. All right. Well, that is our conversation about 28 years later, the Bone Temple. Donato, you are coming live, and by live I mean pre-recorded, to us from Utah. Still in Utah, right? They haven't moved the festival yet.
Utah, yeah,
Utah.
I'm in Utah for one more year in Park City. So thank you for bearing with me this episode because I'm on no sleep because I had to fly here in the morning, and I'm just putting myself together and trying to figure out how I'm going to finish an article in the next hour before I get steaks with Perry and Meg Navarro, and then we go to see a movie tonight.
Well, when you do see that movie, and when you inevitably write about that movie, where do folks connect with you online?
You can find me as always at Donatobomb, DONATOBOMB, and that is going to be Blue Sky, Letterboxd, and Instagram. And as Monocle just said, yeah, I've got 15 reviews slated, so plenty to report about at a Sundance this year, and plenty more that I'll, try to squeeze in. Although, like, I was a little bummed last year because everyone's like, oh, go to Sundance. You get such a jump on award season. Sundance whiffed on award season. And, like, I'm just kind of like this year, like, I don't know. Do I just like take my time and just do my assignments and chill? I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, the work is coming. I'll have recommendations.
As for myself, you can find me online, mostly just Blue Sky, Monogle at bsky.social or whatever they do. Instagram as well. I guess you can follow me, MR Monogle. I'm on there. That's pretty cool. Instagram is cool. I've been sharing photos of my new tattoo, which is my new obsession, so you can see it there. But most importantly, if you liked what you heard today, if you love reading about independent film, if you want to see some of the really cool articles we published in the past week, we brought some writers back from the writing dead to talk about J-horror video game-esque adaptation. You definitely want to go to certifiedforgotten.com. You want to check out some of our writing, and then you want to sign up for our newsletter, certifiedforgotten.com/newsletter. You're going to get all of this good stuff right in your inbox once a week. And we will be back next week, perhaps with an excellent guest, depending on how the festival goes. Perhaps it'll just be the two of us talking about horror again. I'm good with it either way. We'll see you soon.